Katcha's over in the UK. Love that. All right. Katcha's over in the UK, so it's a little bit later for her anyway. But welcome to TCL 30. Yay!
Yay!
The advanced project has a few differences, a few things that are different from what you are used to from the Smart Shopping List project. So we're going to go over those. We're going to look at the project board. I have a learning module on Scrum versus Kanban. So these are terms that will make sense soon to you if they don't already. Yeah, maybe we'll start off maybe with doing some intros. So I think I know all of you. Megan, we didn't actually work super closely together when you were here before, but I mean, you all know I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of Collab Lab, live in Portland, Oregon. I don't know, fun fact. I don't know what to say. I think you all know me pretty well. Stacy, you want to introduce yourself and what your role is here?
Yeah. Yes. Hi, I'm Stacy. I too know most all of you, but I'm here specifically in this meeting because I love you all dearly, but also I'm going to be the code of conduct responder for your team. And as you know from previous days at Collab Lab, we're really dedicated to our code of conduct and making the Collab Lab a really safe, inclusive space for our Collabies to learn and grow, mentors, Tech Talk speakers, participants, everybody. So as your code of conduct responder, just like in all of your previous teams, at about 2 weeks or so, we'll be meeting just to talk through how things are going. And that's just your space to say whatever you need to say, talk about whatever you need to talk about. And I am totally here for you. So I'm your code of conduct responder. If you have any concerns, reach out to me. You can reach out to code-of-conduct@thecollablab.codes if you want to reach the broader code of conduct team, but I'm here for you as always, and I love you all. Okay, with that, I'll pass it to Lauren.
Let's see. Oh, I'm unmuted. Hooray. My name is Lauren Beatty, she, her. And let's see, I live north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Jessica and I are close geographically. And what else? I work with Andrew and Stacy at Zapier now, which is
as of recently, so exciting.
Pretty recently, yeah. So it's so great. So great getting to work with you both. What else can I tell you? Are we doing fun fact? Is that what you said?
Oh, I joked about doing a fun fact. I didn't have one at the ready.
Oh yeah, I don't really have any fun facts, but my name is Lauren Beatty, right? And when I was growing up, of course, everyone made fun of that name because it's a lot like Warren Beatty, famous actor from the United States. And so I would always joke back that I would marry Warren Beatty when I grew up, and then we would be Lauren and Warren Beatty. But that didn't happen.
I love that. That's hilarious and perfect.
Okay, so that is my fun fact. Alejandro, I'll pass it to you.
Hi everyone, I am Alejandro. I live in La Paz, Bolivia. Some time ago, I was a developer of TCL 18, and I'm happy to be here. And that's all. Maybe I will pass Jessica, please.
Hi everyone, I am Jessica Woudsma. I use she, her pronouns, and I live right in smack dab middle of Minneapolis. Been here for about 5 years, but I grew up north of Minneapolis, about 2 hours in the middle of nowhere, and it was kind of awesome, except for the bugs. But anyway, so yeah, I was in the most recent round of TCL. I was in TCL 23, and it was pretty fantastic, and so I'm still here. So yeah, Megan, over to you.
I am Megan McKissick. I live in Portland, Oregon. It's been a while. Y'all have, some of y'all have just come off your last project, so that's super exciting. You're already in the headspace. I think mine has been a second, and time has gone by like in a, I have no idea space. Like, I feel like the project I did, the pandemic shutdown had just started or something, or like right after.
Mhm.
So
You're right. Yeah.
it was definitely interesting times, but it was actually really nice to connect with people that way. So looking forward to doing it again.
I remember
was,
that, and like in your team
mhm.
and stuff, specifically people being like, it's actually really nice to still have like a connection, because a lot of people were like, going remote and kind of like losing grip with humanity sort of, and it's like every week we're still going to be together doing the thing. Like,
Yeah, you were in TCL 7. That was May and June of 2020.
that was when it was getting real intense.
It sure was.
Yeah, like March was like, oh wow, look, we've got all this time and we're just gonna hang out and do stuff, and then it just kept going and
We're
going.
burning out.
All right,
Yeah.
I guess this is our life now.
Yeah, yeah. Katya, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Katya, she, her, hers, I like pronounce. In the last project, I learned so much about working on a software team, and in the advanced one, I hope to keep this going and brush up on my collaboration skills, as well as continue learning from my peers. Fun fact, I'm not based in the US. There was a time when I was an exchange student and I lived in the US for a year, and they sent me to Ohio. I used to live in Ohio.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good old Ohio. All right, cool. So why don't we talk through the project a little bit. So I'm gonna share my screen. I don't know, Lauren, if I'm going off script here. Is this the right thing for me to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Script.
Cool. Yeah, there's a fair bit of information to cover. So I think I'm stalling while I get my Zoom windows together. Have you all kind of taken a look at the What's Near Me app? Is that something you've looked at? Okay. So yeah, so What's Near Me, which is here, is basically it's a way to sort of just to see what Wikipedia entries are near you. So Wikipedia has this API that basically, a lot of, I think most, or I don't know if all, maybe certain types of Wikipedia entries have lat long associated with them, right? Like the latitude and longitude. So that stuff is encoded in this API. You can pull, you can say, here's a location, give me everything that's sort of nearby within a certain radius and stuff. So it's kind of fun, I think. Like this app, I just built it for myself for fun, just as a way to, like, I live in a neighborhood that's near a neighborhood that has a bunch of historic homes and stuff. And so it's just kind of fun to walk around and be like, oh, that's the whatever house or whatever. So the repo for that, the version that I built is up. So you can look at it if you want to, but I wouldn't necessarily call it the best coded project in the world. I think ours will probably be better. But just to kind of give you an overview of how this works. And so I have my browser set up purposely in device mode because I want us to really, really think about this as a mobile first app. So like the use case is you're on your phone, you're either driving or walking or biking or something. And, you are just seeing what's around you, kind of discovering things. So when the app first loads, it comes up, there's a map that shows a default location and, things that are nearby. So in this case, like restaurants and high school, whatever else is kind of near that center. You can share your location. The browser will prompt you to allow that, right? It's a privacy feature of web browsers. Okay, it's turned off. Okay. All right, 1 second while I turn on my location services. But anyway, what that'll do is will share my current location based on either Wi-Fi or cell towers or whatever with the browser. It'll pass through. It'll make an API call. Let's try this again. Location shared, it says. I'll talk about that in a second. All right, come on, work. It worked on my phone a second ago. This is, anyway. So what that should do is pull it down here to where I live and show a different set of pins. You notice that I just drag the browser, and so you can, it has another feature where you can just drag it around and discover whatever is in that spot. So I have a little icon up here that lets me center it back on myself. It still doesn't understand where I am, but that's all right. And then let's see, the other things, there's some help. So there's some videos that show how to install it on your home screen. So this is a progressive web app. Similar to the Smart Shopping List app, you could do this with that one as well, but you can add it to your home screen and then it just acts like another app, which is pretty cool. And then I have one other thing in here, which is I have this feature that allows you to set a delay between each API call. We may or may not implement that. We'll talk about that later in the project, but yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's really just about sort of showing, you know, like you get to see sort of what's around, and you know, links out to the actual Wikipedia entries. So yeah, are there any questions about sort of the app and the functionality? Yeah. All right, cool. So that's what we're building. As just like in the Smart Shopping List app, we have this project brief, which has handy links to things. So production site, our repo, you know, our Jira board. So we're not going to be using GitHub projects. We're going to be using Jira, which you've all confirmed you have the ability to get in there. We're not using Firestore either. We are using Firebase hosting. So that's the link to the consoles here. We also will be using a Google Maps JavaScript API. So I think we manage that from here as well. But anyway, so those are the handy links. You know how this kind of goes. It's 40 hours over the course of 8 weeks, you know, about roughly 5 hours a week. The difference between the Smart Shopping List app and this app is that we will, there's gonna be a lot more kind of responsibility on you to manage your time, because the issues may be small or they may be large. And so you may finish it sort of with extra capacity that week, in which case you could pick up a new issue. Issues may stretch over 2 or even 3 weeks sometimes. So it's gonna, you know, kind of keep track of your time a little bit, maybe a little bit more intentionally or something than you did with the Smart Shopping List, so that you know, you're not getting sucked into spending 10 or 20 hours a week on this. That's not the intention. So but we'll do the same kind of thing where each week you're paired up with somebody, and we'll rotate that around. We still want you to pair program. So we have a pretty wide time zone spread this time. So that's going to be a little bit more challenging, but I think we can work that out as well. You know, definitely want you to still do, you know, some of that, you know, synchronous, you know, kind of pairing over Zoom. And let's see. We will do the weekly syncs. That's what we're doing now. It's, you know, again, a 1 hour Zoom call, and it's basically the same format as what we've done in the Smart Shopping List, where every other week we do a learning module. On the other weeks we do retros. You know, you'll demo your work each week. There's a little bit of a difference with the demos, which is that we'll think of it almost as a review of the previous week. So it'll have demos as one aspect of it, but we'll also be looking at sort of the team, sort of, it's not velocity, it's anyway, it's a term called cycle time, which we're actually going to cover over here in the learning module, but sort of how efficient the team is at sort of getting the work done. So we'll be able to measure that over time using this thing called a control chart, which I'll show you. So anyway, so the demos will include both that kind of review of the team's sort of velocity and your demos of the work. But otherwise, it's pretty similar. And then, yeah, so, you know, the cadence, like you may have learned through the course of your Smart Shopping List project that front loading the work works really well. If you want to get the thing done by the next demo, you should probably be working on it really early in the week. And like I said, sometimes issues are going to stretch over multiple weeks. So don't feel bad if you're like, oh, this isn't going to be done by Saturday. we'll get it done by the next Saturday, right? It's like that's just how it works. So and it also means you may be demoing, multiple stories because maybe you got something quick done, but then you spent some time on something else. And anyway, so yeah, so here I talked a little bit about how they're not all scoped to exactly 1 week. So we can talk about sort of how the pairing goes, I guess. If you like the way we did it in the last advanced project, if you got to the end of the week and the story wasn't done, you still switched who you were pairing with, and one of the people stayed on that story and the other person switched off to the other other story is in progress. So it kind of keeps some continuity there with always having somebody who kind of stays with the story a little bit. So all right, what else? Hey Alejandro, I just want to check in with you. Are you able to understand everything I'm saying? Am I speaking too fast or anything? Is it okay?
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
For asking.
All right, cool. And then, yeah, I mean, the project is in GitHub, but it's actually, we should change this to Jira. The set of user stories are in Jira. And it's similar, there's acceptance criteria and all that. The stories are actually a lot more detailed than Smart Shopping List. So if you've taken a look, they're based on a template that's very comprehensive. And so there's a lot of information there. So I guess make sure that you sort of fully read each story, understand, try to understand what's going on. If you have questions, please clarify. These stories, I mean, we've only used these stories once before, so there's likely things in there that are unclear or maybe even contradict each other, who knows? So, so please, give us all the feedback about the actual stories as well. But similarly to what you've done before, the story's done when the AC have been met. The code has been reviewed by the other pair. The code's been reviewed by one of the mentors, Lauren or myself, and we will act as the product owner as well. And I can define that term a little bit more in our presentation, but and that we've accepted the work as meeting the requirements. So yeah, when we're done with all the stories, we should have a working app. So that'll be cool. All right, so coordination and communication. So again, just like we've emphasized in the past, we really want you to work in the open. So we actually created this workflow that lets you create a story thread. So before in your other projects, you might have had the pair bot, which each week here's who you're paired with, and here's the story you're working on, right? In this case, this is going to be a little bit more on you. If you're picking up a story, you go to this workflow and you create a story thread for whoever's working on that story, because it could be, it's not always going to happen on Saturdays that you pick up a new story, right? So, so we'll put a little more responsibility on you to kind of spin that thread up to use as a place to collaborate on the story. So definitely want you using draft PRs. So one of the first things you should do, you should set up your branch. So you get a draft PR going where we can all kind of watch the work happen, which just kind of facilitates fast code reviews and good communication. A lot of all this stuff is the same, I think, where kind of the format of the branch names, again, how to check out how to create a branch and all that. And yeah, so there are differences and similarities, as I've been saying. So we'll talk through that. But yeah, is there anything, Lauren, that I'm missing or should have said, and any questions that people have?
I think you got it, but if people have questions, go for it.
I had a look at Jira and it gave me the fear.
Yeah.
Yes, that is totally valid. We will, yeah, Jira gives all of us the fear, to be honest. Stacy, right? Am I right? So but it's a really super commonly used tool in software. So it's worth getting at least fairly comfortable with it. So we'll try to keep it relatively simple in Jira. Is it, well, actually I should ask, is it the tool itself or is it just the list of stories, or what was the fear part?
Yeah,
Where did
I
that come from?
finding my way around, yeah. But I understand that
yeah, it's a little complicated. The problem, like both the great thing and the terrible thing about Jira is that it's so flexible and could do so many things, which means that the interface is kind of a mess, to be honest. I mean,
Challenging.
it is challenging. That's a better word for it. I shouldn't be so judgy about Jira. But
Jira.
anyway,
That's good.
Fira. Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, but hopefully in a few weeks, hopefully by the end of the project, you're more comfortable with it. I don't know. Hopefully in a week or two, you're more comfortable with it. It's it has a lot of functionality. You can kind of zero in on the couple of things that you need to do, and live in that world pretty comfortably, I think. So, what should we do next, Lauren? Should we? I guess we should do the learning module.
Yeah, I think let's do the learning module because that'll help explain how the workflow is going to be a little bit better, I think.
All right, cool. So I use these terms early, Scrum and Kanban. So we're going to talk about the differences between these, and they both have some similarities, and they're both kind of used to do the same thing, but they are quite different. So Scrum is actually sort of what the Smart Shopping List project is based on. So it's very structured. It has very kind of predictable cadence. Kanban is a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so Scrum is what's called a software development methodology. So what that means is just it's a set of kind of practices and process for making software happen. It's an agile methodology. So if you're not familiar with this, there was this thing. I mean, you can see instantly that there is problematic that it's just a bunch of middle-aged white guys standing around a room, but there was some good ideas in here. So this is a pretty famous thing in software, the manifesto for agile software development. So these middle-aged white guys got together and they came up with a set of sort of principles or values, and it's individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. So you have to understand, like when they, I don't know even when did they do this? Is there a copyright on here? 2001. So this is 20 years old. Back then, it was much more common for software to be, there would be a big planning phase where you decide all the things that are going to happen in the software, and then there's big negotiations and contracts and all that kind of stuff, and then then you hand that to software developers who are supposed to build the perfect thing, and then you hand it back to the client, and the client says that's not what I needed, right? This is really common. It's kind of called waterfall, is the waterfall process. So these white guys came up with these principles based on that as just a better way to build software. And I just want to say, like, I've been doing this a long time. Some of my teams at Zapier are inching closer to actually doing this, but I've never had a team that was actually really doing agile development. Like it's sort of aspirational, but it is a good thing to aspire to because it really does produce better results. And in a way that I don't know, just kind of everybody's more satisfied if you can actually get to the point where you're following these things versus waterfall processes, which tend to just not produce the results. There's a lot of problems with waterfall, but anyway, so Scrum is one agile methodology. Kanban is another. In Scrum, so the team commits to a set of work. So this is actually a really important. If I can highlight that, there we go. An important concept in Scrum where the team is making a commitment. So it's very often the team will have a 2-week sprint. So like it's also called an increment, where the team commits to like, oh, we'll take in 11 user stories in this 2-week period. And at the end of the 2 weeks, the team demos just sort of what the state of the software is. They do a retro, kind of reflect on, like, did we make our commitment or not? If we didn't, what could we improve to make it more likely that the next time we'll meet the commitment? So it's very structured. There's this cadence to it of, the team looks at what the product owner wants. So the product owner has an absolutely ranked list of work. So here's top priority, second priority, absolutely prioritized. The team starts taking stuff from the top, decides when they need to stop based on their capacity. They do the work, they focus and do the work, and then at the end say, did we make the commitment or not? So that's sort of the cadence of Scrum. Stories can be of varying size. This will become more apparent why I'm saying that in a second when I talk about Kanban. But they usually, like, teams will use story points as a way to express how this sort of relative complexity of stories. And it's kind of geeky, but they often use the Fibonacci sequence, which is it's a math thing. So like 1, 3, 5, 8, 11, 7, 8, 11. I don't know. I don't even know what the numbers are, but to reflect, like a 1 is a really small and simple story. A 3 is a little bit bigger. A 5 is bigger. 8 is still bigger yet, more complex. So the team measures their velocity as the number of story points that they get done in each increment. So if it's 2 weeks and you get 11 story points done in that 2 weeks, that's the team's velocity. And if you do that over and over again, 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks, another 2 weeks, you start to get a sense of, there's some variation in there, but you start to get a sense of what the team is capable of in terms of shipping story points over a certain period of time. So that gives some predictability to the work. It also helps the team find a sustainable cadence, ideally. So, if the team says, oh no, I think we can do 15 this time, but then you don't make the commitment, the next time you're like, well, okay, that was a little ambitious. Let's bring it back to 11, right? Yeah, that's basically Scrum. It gets the name from the ritual of the daily stand-up. So Scrum is actually a rugby term where everyone gets together, like they get in this big group and they push each other around and stuff. But software Scrum, you stand in a circle and you say, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Do you have any blockers? That's the sort of classic stand-up. It's supposed to be a really quick meeting, and then people go off and have deeper discussions about the work and kind of get the work done. Energetic kittens are great. Are there any questions about this stuff? It doesn't map perfectly to what you did in the shopping list, but it's sort of what the shopping list project is based on. I'm guessing most of this is, like, some of this is new, or most of it's new for people. Some of these terms, velocity and sprints and things.
We covered some of
Oh,
it
sorry,
in the
Jessica,
boot
go ahead.
camp. Oh, I was just
Oh.
gonna say we covered some of these terms in the boot camp that I was in, but I don't feel like we didn't like dive in and really have a chance to practice them. So there's some of this is familiar, some of this is new.
Okay, yeah. What were you gonna say, Lauren?
Oh yeah, I watched the video last night of the last weekly sync for TCL 20, and you said something really interesting about how people define a sprint that as like the length of time before you think the business can change its mind or something. Was that what you said?
Yeah, how long the business can go without changing their mind. So that's like, this was kind of developed as a way to sort of protect the developers from the business, because the business will be like, oh, I want this, and no, I want this now, and kind of just randomizing people, and you don't have time to actually get anything done. So if the business can go 2 weeks without changing their mind, then that's the length of your sprint, and you can trust that you're not going to get like pulled away to do other things during that time. And then the product owner knows that at that 2 week boundary, at the boundary between those two sprints, that's when they can reprioritize, ask the team to sort of change direction. So that's one of the motivations behind Scrum as well.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Cool. All right, let's move on to Kanban. So Kanban it wasn't first developed as a software methodology. It was a production methodology that originated in Japanese factories. So you think of like a factory, it's like the idea, like what you want to have happen is that the production line is always moving. Things are happening at a predictable cadence, and maybe you can, if you get things to be more efficient, you can speed the line up a little bit, but it's the idea is you kind of keep the line moving, right? And it's this kind of river of work that goes by. So Kanban as an agile methodology, I think it's just, that's the same link. Yep. Yeah, the idea is that the team agrees on work in progress limits, WIP limits. So some people say WIP limits. And what that does is, if you limit the amount of things, the number of things you have in progress at any one time, it allows you to focus on those things and actually get them all the way to done. Whereas if you start something else, and now you start a third thing, and now like, oh, I don't know where to go, and you like, it's actually slows you down a lot to be switching between the tasks, and then maybe you get 3 things to 60 to 80% done, but nothing's actually 100% done. So that's not helpful. It doesn't deliver any kind of value to the end user, right? So so one of the big concepts in Kanban is these work in progress limits. And there's different limits for the different states of the issues too. So you might, I mean, there's no real limit to what should be done, but especially in progress and in review, putting fairly tight limits on those sort of protects the team in a way. Like if you end up with more things in progress, that's sort of a signal that, hey, we need to have a discussion about kind of getting it done or something. If there are too many things in review, maybe it's turning out to be hard for the team to get the code reviews they need and kind of get things actually shipped, right? So it's used to kind of surface issues that are happening in the process of getting things done. Work is expressed as user stories, again, just like Scrum. But the goal here, instead of the stories being varying sizes and you give them story points, the goal is that all stories are roughly the same size. So that's, I can tell you right now, on our board, that is not the case. But we'll talk about this concept of story splitting next week, actually, as a way to right size the stories. That's a little jargony, but it just means that we're shooting for, we'll as a team kind of decide on what our cycle time should be. So like our ideal story should take a certain number of days, and we will look at as the stories come up on the board, we'll look at those and see, like, do we think that we can actually do that in that number of days? And if not, let's see if there's a way to split the story into 2 stories that are each achievable in that amount of time. So what that does, if the team gets good at right sizing and story splitting and everything, it makes the work very predictable as well. So it's another way of getting to that predictability, so you can tell sort of, are we going to be done on time? Kind of, that's maybe the end goal of all this. Very similar to Scrum, at regular intervals, we'll demo progress and reflect on improvements. So we'll do that still. We'll demo weekly and look at cycle time, and then we will do retros on a bi-weekly basis, every other week. The only thing, there's one concept I should probably add to this slide, which is Andon. So I'll put that in the chat, I guess. So an Andon is that's a Japanese word for something. I don't know if it's an alarm or what the word actually means, but how it's used is in a Japanese factory, or any factory that's using Kanban, any worker on the line has the ability to stop the line. And it's usually something like, I do this because it's often like there's literally a handle that you grab and you pull this thing, and it just like shuts the whole thing down. And it's actually, you would think like, oh, that's a really scary thing, I'm gonna get fired if I pull that lever, right? But it's actually a really good thing. If you notice something that's going wrong, and the production line is flowing, and you're just gonna stack up problem on top of problem if you don't stop the line. So you stop the line, and it tells the team like, hey, stop what you're doing, tune into this problem, let's fix that problem, and then we'll start the line back up. So at Zapier, the team that Stacy and I are on, we have an actual Zap where yeah, that's exactly right. So anyway, so we have we can actually kind of like react in Slack with the Andon emoji, and it posts a message and tags the whole team in, and we all stop, we drop what we're doing, get in the thread, and start working out what the problem is and how we can fix it. So we could set something up. Actually, we should set something up for this our channel as well. So any of you, you know, if there's something like you're blocked, you can't make progress, or like stuff's not deploying, like those kinds of problems, stop the line and we'll all kind of tune in and try to fix it together. Okay, we gotta stop on time, so I need to stop talking. Are there any questions about this? I have a couple of resources. I'll post the slides in the channel, but are there any questions about Kanban in particular? No. Yep.
I have a question or curiosity. When the story or the team is blocked, it's a use state, or is a, I don't know, it's a stage of the process, or is, I don't know.
Oh yeah, being blocked means like you have something that's in progress, and you know you want to make progress on it, but you can't for some reason. That means that there's like something that happened in the last advanced project is that the API key was configured incorrectly, so people couldn't get the map to render. So until we have that fixed, like people can't get anything done, right? So that's a case where we stopped the line. I went into the console and fumbled around until I got the API key working, and then people could resume work. Does that make sense?
Okay. You stop the work when you have a problem, or you have a error maybe.
Yeah, something that's, you know, I mean, it's sort of normal to encounter small errors in your own work, you know, or whatever. But if it's something where the whole team is affected, or it's you're basically not going to be able to get your work done until something's fixed and you need help with that, then you could stop the line for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a little question about Scrum. It's about the velocity. It depends for how many people or developers work, and
yeah, it depends on a bunch of things. So it depends on the number of people on the team. It depends on how the team assigns story points to the stories. So one team may call something a 3, and another team may call it an 8. So, you know, the velocity is basically just, you know, the sum of the numbers that you get done in a certain sprint. But you know, teams, they might size the stories very differently. So, you know, you can't compare one team to another in terms of velocity, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So yeah, so that's that. And so we're gonna follow something closer to Kanban than Scrum. And some of those details, you know, these things will like cycle times and stuff will become more apparent sort of later on. All right. Okay, Lauren, do you want to talk about the?
How are we doing? Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's switch over to Jira. I think that let me share the link again. Oh my gosh, Zoom. All right. Do not be scared of Jira. It is hard to navigate sometimes. And like Andrew said, like it's really powerful. It can do tons and tons and tons of things. And depending on where you work, it'll be completely different how people use Jira. So you'll learn new things at all of the different jobs where you're using Jira. So just treat this board like it's your own. Poke around, find things, figure stuff out. Don't be afraid to touch anything in Jira. This is really your board. These stories are yours. These epics are yours to edit and comment on and add things to as you see fit. So do not be afraid of Jira. So if you, did I share? Yeah. Okay, so the backlog for this project compared to what you're used to in the original project, the shopping list project, this is organized not just in user stories, but some of the user stories are inside of epics. So we think of an epic as like a collection of stories. All of those stories feed into that epic. And when those stories are done, that particular big story, that epic, is completely done. So it's organized right now in order of the epics, but we can take the stories within each epic. Depending, you can take them in different kinds of orders. So this is the first epic that we'll work on. And it's really just getting the app sort of set up and ready to do the work with the API and adding the Wikipedia API calls, et cetera, et cetera. So there are 3 stories inside of this epic. The first epic is called Put the Bones of the App in Place, so we can start building its unique features. Andrew, I don't know what you think about the order of the stories. It doesn't seem like anything depends on anything else. To me, the update app details seems probably like the quickest story to get done, and then
Yeah,
the
that's
create.
probably true.
So
yeah, I guess the displaying a basic map, it would be good to have the views in place first,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. So I was thinking maybe having create placeholder views, like do the routing and the update app details, because they don't really conflict with one another, and displaying a basic map.
Sure.
So let me just talk through these 3 stories super quickly so everyone can understand what they are. So, so this first epic, again, is getting kind of the bones of the app in place. So this particular story, creating placeholder views, this is like setting up the routes. So as a user, Andrew has created really amazing descriptions for all of these stories. Very, very, very detailed. They're all formatted like this, as a whatever. So in this case, as a user, I want to be able to navigate to the relevant views within the app so that I can access the various features, right? There's always a description that as a something, I want to be able to do this thing so that this next thing happens. And here's a little image of what there's styling on this image, but we don't really need to worry about styling now. Just like with shopping list app, that's really the last thing that we'll do is make the app look beautiful. So here we just want to get some basic routes in place to the map page, to the list page, to the settings page, and to the help page. There is more information here. How are we doing on time? Okay, I'm not going to go too deep in all of the information, but acceptance criteria, users will be shown the following 4 navigation elements pinned to the bottom of the screen, right? So you're working toward meeting all of these acceptance criteria. That's that story. Display a basic map. So this is the first time that we'll be interacting with Google Maps. As a user, I want to be able to view a map so that I can eventually see what's near me. This is just a placeholder map, no location services, right? It's just a map with a location of some place that you pick, like New Orleans, Louisiana. The assumptions, we're building a React app. We're only adding the most basic map possible at this point. Origin, so this story is part of the epic to get the basic bone with the app in place, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. What is really important? Okay, so acceptance criteria. You're going to use Google Map React for rendering the map. A map component is created that renders a default Google map at a hard-coded latitude and longitude and a hard-coded zoom level, right? So this is not dynamic at all. You're just going to pick a place anywhere in the world and a hard-coded zoom level that makes sense. This is the API key that you'll be using. And eventually, this kind of depends on the routing a little bit because it's going to be on the map page. Right, so that's why it might be smart to also start with update app details. And this is really just some configuration to get the PWA set up. So to get the progressive web app set up, where are the acceptance criteria? So once the story is complete, users should be able to install the app on their device home screens. If you look at Andrew's app, you can see and look under, if you have an iOS phone, right, that's how you do it. And in Android, that's how you do it. The tags and data points that should be updated include the following. So really, this is just some kind of configuration to get things in place for PWA. And to me, this is probably the fastest of the stories. That's my opinion, but your mileage.
As long as you don't get bogged down in choosing colors or something.
Yeah. So this is really just kind of filling out some fields. So we have these 3 stories. The pairs this week, Megan and Jessica are a pair, and Alejandro and Katcha are a pair. So what I would suggest is, but it is up to you. I would suggest starting with create placeholder views as the first story, and then update app details as the second story. And then just to reiterate what Andrew was saying, so we're doing a Kanban style. So let's say you're working on, you have the update app detail story. If you get done with that really early in the week and you haven't spent 5 hours on the project, right? We still really want you to keep that level of commitment, that about 5 hours a week. We don't want you to spend so much time that it becomes hard, right? That we want this to be sustainable with your life. So if you get done with that story early in the week, then feel free to pull in the next ticket of this epic and get started on that.
I just reordered those 2, so it's more clear what the order is that they should do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Refresh. Cool. What questions do you have?
On the stories, if we wanted to, we can bring those into like a Kanban board and assign each other ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. So right now the board is empty because we haven't pulled anything in for development, right? So I just click Kanban board and this will show us what we have in progress. So if I go back to the backlog view.
Oh yeah, I guess at this point we should probably take the epic in those first 3 stories and move them to selected for development.
Sure. So I will show you here. So here I have the epic selected, and then I can just say selected for development, and that'll pull that into the board. So if I go back to the board, and then with Jira, you can only assign 1 person. So you could just pick who's responsible for that epic. Let's see. Do epics pull in? I don't know if epics
our Jira again is ultimately flexible. So the way we have the board set up, only the stories are going to show up on the board. It did say there, there was 1 thing selected for development, but I think we're only going to display the stories.
I think you're right. And then, yeah. Oh, let me show a couple things because I think that this is set up.
Well, once the stories are on there, I think maybe they show their epic or something like that.
Yep. So let's see. I'm going to put this one into development, selected for development. And then let's go back. There we go. And so you can see that it shows this particular epic. Eventually, we might be working on 2 different epics at the same time. Like once somebody's working on the last story of epic 1, some other pair might pull in the next story from the second epic. That'll show up in a different, what's called a swim lane, so that they're organized by epic. So once you decide who's going to work on which story, right, you can assign someone from your pair, and then you'll move this to in progress, and you can just drag them across too, right? So you'll move this into in progress. When it's ready for review, you can say that it's ready for review, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if we have fancy things set up so that sometimes when you create a pull request, the Jira ticket will automatically move to ready for review, but I don't know if we have.
We could set that up. Could you move the last story that you reviewed into selected for development as well?
Yep, this one. Okay.
Yep. Cool. And I think that subtasks, maybe we can get rid of that subtask for creating subtasks. So I think, so the way that the team that Stacy and I are on at Zapier used to work. Did we change that? We don't do subtasks anymore. Anyway, we we had anyway. It's complicated, but we're not gonna use that feature. So we can just we can close that out. It's the 3-dot menu. The one at the upper right. There's so many 3-dot menus.
Do you want me to delete it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can so Jira has a feature called subtasks. If you wanted to, you look through the story and you want to break it down into subtasks, feel free to add those to the subtasks always roll up to a story. You can add those to your story, but there's no requirement to do that. So yeah, so now the board has, it should have 3 things, right? So it should have the basic, that other.
Oh, I didn't add that one.
The views. Yeah, okay. Oh, display a basic map. Yep.
So
yeah, so the idea is once we have sort of talked about them as a team, then they're selected for development. They're in a priority order, so you still know which one to work on next. And yeah, but anything that, well, I guess we have a max of 4, so we're at our limit, our work in progress limit for that column.
Cool. So who would like to work on create placeholder views? Which team? Any preferences? Katcha? Katcha and Alejandro, does that sound good? All right, Katcha, I'm gonna add you in here. There we go. And Jessica. Awesome.
Exciting.
Very exciting. So yep, when you get started, you can just drag it over to in progress, or you can just use the drop down inside of the.
So again, just like the smart shopping list, create your branch, make sure you both have access to the branch, create a draft PR early where you can start, we can kind of show the work, create the thread in the team channel. So you put in both your names and then a link to your issue, and yeah, we'll get started. I mean, this is, I don't know. I love the advanced project because it's like, when you first did your shopping list, everyone's like, what are we doing? Like, this is so overwhelming. And I feel like there are differences here, and like Jira is scary and all that kind of stuff for sure. But, y'all been through it. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I know what it means to like create a branch and like set up a draft PR and like pair program, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, we're going to be able to sort of take it all to the next level over the next 8 weeks. So super excited to work with you all. How are you feeling about it?
Nervous and excited.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That'd be fun.
It's going to be great. Cool. And 3 minutes to spare before orientation. Perfect.
This is like, I say this to every team. If you've ever been in a meeting with me, dedicating 5 hours a week can be challenging, but it's challenging in the sense that you don't go over it. And it's really important that we be mindful of our time. So if you feel like you're going over that 5 hours, be really loud about it so that we can either work on time management skills or get you unblocked or refine the program so that it fits better into schedules. So just keep that in mind. We're here for you. Nobody's going to get in trouble if you feel like you're spending too much time. We want to know about it. So just be loud. Yep.
Thank you all. All right. We'll see you in the channel.
All right.
Good luck,
Thanks,
everyone.
All right. See ya.
Right.
Bye.